her knowledge, her understanding about Spiritism, about our Master Jesus, to guide us tonight. This way, protect each one of us, now and ever, and so be it. Welcome, Jussara. Thank you for being here with us. Before I pass the word to you, as usual, we'd like to say that Jussara is one of our greatest friend, right? That when we go back and we look at the our march in terms of Spiritism here in the U.S., Jussara always comes to mind, right? For many of us have listened, have talked to her, listened to her talks, and talked to her. Um, uh, and we know that she has a great dedication to Spiritism in this nation as well. And we are happy to have her here today, and sending our good vibrations to João, the son, as well, and all of you there in New York. Before I'll pass the word to her, I would like to announce her formally. And Jussara Korngold is currently the General Secretary of the International Spiritist Council, former President and current Vice President of the United States Spiritist Federation. She is the founder and president of the Spiritist Group of New York and the Spiritist Alliance for Books. Mrs. Korngold is fluent in Portuguese, English, French, and Spanish. She is an international speaker, a published author, and a translator. Mrs. Korngold works for Brazil Child Health Data Institute as its main executive. And today, Jussara will be speaking to us about the parable of talents, right? Thank you, Jussara, for being here, and welcome to this moment. And the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm actually really happy to be here with you today, and having this opportunity to speak again to the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. Thank you so much for the kind words. The topic that we have chosen today, the talent of each one of us, of course, it is based on the parable of the talents. This parable is actually, I think, one of the ones from Jesus that we talk about more, because I think it resonates it so much in our day-to-day lives and with our mission, our task, our work, our commitment here in this plane, the physical plane. So because we do understand that each one of us will present different inclinations, different possibilities and aptitudes in relation to our brothers and sisters. Having said that, it doesn't mean that because we will have different aptitudes, we will be more or less than our brothers and sisters, because at the end we know that we are all children of God and we were all created in the same manner, all destined to move on in terms of reaching a perfect state. So I will comment a little bit about the meaning of parables and this parable per se before we get into what I really want to get into, the interpretation and bring some, some topics that I really would like to stress. I think it's important for us to stress when studying this topic. Of course, when we talk about parables, we know that normally they are referred to as being allegorical narratives that brings an indirect message that will bring a way for us to compare through analogy. It embodies a religious or moral precept, especially those found in the gospel. But parables are normally divided into three classes. This is just a way of us studying it, but this is how normally they are presented. the parables that are considered to be true parables, parables that really happen in our daily life. So the illustration is drawn from daily life, hence its teaching can be universally recognized. The sheep separated from the flock, so the lost sheep, we can I mean, and we can imagine at the time of Jesus this happening, when Jesus was giving or talking about this parable, people would know what Jesus was talking about. They, many of them had ships, or they were familiar with that, and of course in this case they would know what this represented in terms of the owner uh, trying to go after the lost sheep, not to be separated from the flock. So this is one of the true, what we can call the true parable. And parables, they are presented as stories. It refers to past events centered directly on a person. So we have the parable of the unfaithful steward, the one that received an attribution from his Lord and actually didn't work it this way. So all of that give us references to how we can as well understand the situation, the teaching that Jesus wanted to give to us, and illustrations, stories that focus on examples to be imitated. The parable of the Good Samaritan, something that we talk a lot, uh, all the time. We've been talking about it, how how we have to help each other, how we have to remember that we are all brothers and sisters, and regardless of the our ethnicity, where we come from, what language we speak, is the same way. We should always be there and should always provide help. So these are manners of illustrating that Jesus found as well, to make us relate to those stories, those parables. But why did Jesus speak in parables? So, one of the things that we know is because it was a very easy form of communication. People of all backgrounds could understand the messages, the truths, the spiritual and moral values that it brought. Also, in terms of helping us to remember it well. Let us be reminded that many of the ancient teachings, they were not written um, before, some of them many centuries after. They were passed along in forms of stories, in forms of songs, and people would remember them because of that. So a story is easier for us to memorize. A challenge, because they often, contain much more than we just are looking there. Or here we are, more than 2,000 years after, studying a parable that is one of the most cited, and still we will see how much we can learn from it. So that's, it's like peeling the layers to get into the deep meaning. But one thing that Jesus will always paid attention to is that everything that he had to speak in a very clear manner. So the messages that contain the moral values, when he talked about the love God and love, of course he would be giving it in a way that everyone could understand. And some of the messages that were given discreetly only to his disciples, to those that could understand a bit more of what he was talking to us at that time. Let us understand a little bit of the monetary values. I don't know about yourselves, but to me, I remember the first time I heard those parables, and when you talk about, a parable of a talent, and one received it one, and two, and five. What is that? What is really a talent, right? And so let's bring here the value of coins at that time. So we had the denarius that was a silver coin, and normally the worker would receive a denarius a day. So we would be talking about 200 and 300 denarius a year, more or less what an average person would be having as compensation for their work. A drachma, that is basically the same thing as a denarius, and the minas, that is 100 drachmas. And what is talent? The talent is it can be made of gold, silver, lead, iron, and copper. And depending on the material, of course, the metal that they are going to be using, it can weigh from 34 kilograms to 60 kilograms. So we are talking, 70 pounds to 130 pounds, something like that. So a talent is just not a small coin, it's a bag of money. Because sometimes we think, oh, God, this Lord gave one of them one, two, five talents, and we think, what can they do with that? So here, it specifies that it's a very large amount of money. So it is really, how do I say? A gift. It is really something that you can make a very good use of it. It's not something insignificant. It's something that really can be put to a good use, in this case, bags and bags of money. So here we have then the parable. We know the master went on a long journey, called his servants, and entrusted them with his possessions. He gave 5 bags to one, to other he gave 2 bags, to another he gave 1 bag. And the parable that Jesus tells us emphasizes that he gave to each one of them according to their ability of being, working and benefiting from this amount of money. So the parable goes as saying that the man that had received 5 bags went and put this money to work and wind up gaining another 5. And the same happened with the one that had 2. And the man that received just 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. So he received this talent. And sometimes, I feel very intrigued because, the word that we use, talent, it's very much the word we would be using today. What is your talent? What is the ability that you have that you can multiply, right, and make some good out of it? So of course, after a long time, the master returned and went to talk to the servants, and the one that has received 5 bags, he said, I applied them, and I gained 5 more. And the Lord just says, well done, good, because you have been faithful in those things, I will be putting you in charge of many other things. You have proved to me that you are capable of doing things, of being a faithful servant. The one that received 2, the same thing. The master replied, you have been faithful, you faithful servants, and we'll put you in charge of many, many things. Come and share my happiness. And then there was at the time where the one that received just one bag came back and said, I know that you are a very stern man, that you harvest where you have not even sown. And so I was afraid. I had fear, and then I hid your gold, and here it is, what belongs to you. Here it is back. But he received a reply that he was not expecting. And the reply is that he was a very wicked, lazy servant, because if in a way he knew that his master would always reap results from things, why at least he didn't invest the money so that the master could have at least some interest back? And the thing is that as the parable continues, the master takes the bag, this one bag, and give to the one that had 5 bags, by saying, for whoever has will be giving more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. So and how can we start our reflections about this? It was always intriguing to me to think, why would he be giving more to the one that received more? And we have a saying that normally we give, when we want some, or this is one thing that we commonly say, when we want something to be done, we will look for the person that it's busier, and we will ask this person, and certainly we will have this done. So I think it's the same principle that we can apply here, in knowing that the one that have proven himself to be faithful in this term of putting the talents to good use. But there is another thing that I think sometimes we can miss, which is, we always focus too much on the numbers 1, 2, 5, right? The bags of gold that the servant have received. And of course, we know what happened with the one, so this is not our concern now. But let's talk about the one that has received 2 bags, and compare to the other one that received 5 bags. So if we think about only the amount of money that they have received, of course, the one that received 5 bags received much more than the one that had 2 bags. But let's think about the response, the result of what they did with what they had received according to their abilities. The result was the same. Both of them doubled their values. So the one with 5, the one with 2, they produced another 2, they produced another 5. So we can say at this moment that the amount of effort, it was absolutely the same, regardless of the possibilities they had. So it is one thing for us to think about, because sometimes we say, oh, I could have done so much more if I could speak many languages, or if I could do this or that. It doesn't matter. You have to do the most with the talent that you have, the aptitude that you have, what was given to you or conquered throughout your reincarnations, so that you could come now and take the most out of it, produce the most out of it. So, and this is when we know that the Lord said that he would be thrown to a place of darkness, where there would be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And we know that this refers to our planet Earth, right? Especially when we were talking about planet Earth as being a planet of trials and atonements. But luckily for all of us, because of our efforts, we are doing our utmost to become a world of regeneration. So we have to think at this point that to God, we are all the same. We are all, his creation, God's creations, right? So this way of thinking sometimes that some people have gotten more than we did, it is because perhaps if we were in their position, we wouldn't be able to do what they do, or it would be a way for us to lose ourselves even more. So, of course, there will be different talents, there will be different possibilities, because in the world, we need this. We need, for instance, people that would have the financial resources to finance, things that can contribute to the well-being of society. We will have need people that will have intellectual possibilities that will can helping educate others, and we will have people that will have more spiritual gifts so that can tell them about the immortality of the soul and everything that we can get from this. But in one of the messages in Living Spring, Emmanuel, message 132, he talks about fear as being the great adversary of talent. And he uses this topic, fear, illustrating it with the parable of talents. When the negligent servant says, I had fear, that's why I haven't even tried to produce anything. So it was entrusted to him that he would be doing something useful with that, and then he let himself imagine that he was not he was very poor in resources, that it would be very difficult to do things. But the thing is, many times we do get, like this negligent servant, the possibility to do things, but we get too used to our way of living. We don't want to any kind of action. We don't want to risk anything, and we remain idle. And this is we hide behind also the word fear. So he continues saying, using the teaching of Jesus that we can see in Matthew 25:25, I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. So here, Emmanuel brings about what kind of fear can we present? Fear of working and of serving. Many people will have this situation. They don't want to expose themselves. They don't want to be at the service of anyone. They don't want to relate. They wanted to stay in their own shell. Even at the point of fear of making friends, because friends may betray you or may give you a hard time, or fear of disappointing. Many times we hide behind disappointing as well. Oh, I'm not so good. I mean, it's better if you ask someone else to do it, because I'm going to disappoint you. I mean, all of us have to start somewhere. And every time we start something, of course, we are not experts in those things. It only will come with time. So we have fear of suffering and pain, fear of being misunderstood, and even fear of joy. And as Emmanuel say, in life, they cling to the fear of death. In death, they confess the fear of life. So those are fear is a very bad enemy that we may have, and it's something that we have to control, because otherwise it is going to control us. It's not going to allow us to embrace opportunities, because everything that the Lord was giving to those servants were opportunities. And so one of them just says, I feared that you would be too strict. and that I would not, give you what it was expected of me. And he didn't, because not even to apply the money he was capable of doing. He just stayed in his comfortable position, not risking anything, not putting his mind to work, not engaging in things that could bring him the possibility of success. So, under the pretext of being less favored by fate, they gradually transform themselves into champions of futility and laziness. No matter how dark the pathway you've been led to by circumstances, enrich it with the light of your efforts and goodness, because fear did not serve as an acceptable justification in the settling of accounts between the servant and the Lord. So again, like Emmanuel brings to us here, it doesn't matter how hard it is, we have to do something. And how many times we are invited to contribute to do something in so many different situations, and we just say, oh, I can't, or I'm unable to do that. There are many people that are much more capable to do that than I am. And we are not being modest. We are giving ourselves, like Emmanuel says here, you know, that we could be called champions of futility and laziness. So many companions become accustomed to lamenting over talents they do not yet possess, forgetting the blessings that already grace their lives. This is another thing that sometimes is what keeps us paralyzed. We keep on focusing so much in what we do not have that we do not use the possibilities we have. We put too many barriers, and I mean, we try to find so many excuses, in terms of starting the work. I remember that when I first moved to this country, although I had been living in England for almost 3 years, my English was not that good. And as you can see, even today, I still have, uh, an accent, and I will do some grammar errors, and I may not speak grammatically correct all the time, or But when I thought that this could be presented as a barrier for me to communicating with people and spread all this knowledge and all this understanding that I already had in terms of spirit, has been my love, my passion, and the way it always helped me, how I wanted, people to be helped as well. And then I thought, well, if I don't do that, I'm letting pride be stronger than humility. So it doesn't matter. I will perhaps start with, as I started before, with a broken English, trying to communicate the best that I could. And along the years, of course, we could have the opportunity to learn more, and although we know there is so much more to learn. But this is the thing, we cannot let anything paralyze us, especially when we are talking about disseminating messages of goodwill and things that can help others, that can assist and comfort others. And this is what Emmanuel is saying here. And there was a point that I was very mad with God, actually, because I said, oh my God, you knew that this was my destiny. Why haven't you equipped me better? I mean, the only subject that I didn't like in school, when I was in school in Brazil, was actually English. So, and now I have to live in English countries and speak English. And of course, now I love this very much. But I mean, it was hard. And I was looking for what I didn't have. But on the opposite side, I did have the opportunity of growing up in a home where I would find, the religious, spiritual education, and that would be helping me with everything that I do today. So this is what we have to do. Look for the graces we already have. And there are many more than the things that we do not have. So Emmanuel says here, and I think it's very serious what he says over here, reflect on the opportunities available to you, and you will grasp the scope of the advancements bestowed upon you by divine providence. An advancement represents an early concession with specific objectives in mind. So let's get back again to the parable of the talents. The parable doesn't say that the Lord was giving them that money, the bags of money to them because they were being rewarded. It actually states very clearly that it was just a lending, an advancement. And now with this, let's say, little push, they could show what they could do, you know, uh, in relation to what if they didn't have anything. And this is the end result. The ones, two of them doubled their possibilities, but at the end of the day, everything belonged to the Lord. So here Emmanuel is telling us very clearly that everything, all the possibilities that we have, and that we think that it's just because we have amassed them through our reincarnations. Not necessarily. Many of them are concessions that we are going to be receiving in order to advance more. But I want to bring to you a parable, interpretation that Brother X, the spirit Umberto de Campos, through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, brings to us in the book that we have in English, Among Brothers from Other Lands. And this one was authored by the spirit Brother X, Umberto de Campos. And it brings an interpretation of the parable of the talents that was actually discussed in their studies when in the spirit world, when this rabbi Ozias, that was an Israeli guide, and now the spirits Umberto de Campos tell us that is very devoted to the truths of the gospel in the spiritual world. He asked permission to paraphrase in a way that we could learn and reflect even more about the talents. So it starts the same way. The Lord of the earth, departing temporarily from the world, called 3 of his servants, and considering each one's ability, entrusted them with some of his own possessions as a loan, informing them that he would meet them again later in the higher life. Here, right, it seems very much like when we are going to be reincarnating. It's time for us to depart from the world of the spirits, but we will be called and be receiving possibilities that will help us in our mission, in our work, upon returning as in a physical body. But always remembering it's a loan, because those things that not necessarily belongs to us, we cannot call it our own. And when we are going to be returning to the higher life, we will be showing what we did with them. So he calls the first one. Oh, before, let me just a second. He calls the first one, and he gives to the first one money, power, comfort, skill, and prestige. And I can see some of you moving in your chairs thinking, oh my God, this this is nice. I wish it had been me, right? Money, power, comfort, skill, and prestige. And when it's time for this one to return, he says the following to the Lord: Lord, I have made many mistakes, but I have begun to cultivate, albeit with small results, another 5. work, progress, friendship, hope, and gratitude. Forgive me, ah, divine friend, if I could not do more. And the Lord responded to him, well done, faithful servants, for you did not err intentionally. Return to the earthly field and resume the interrupted work, being reborn under the care of the affections you have gathered. So here we see that in the same manner that we see on the parable, with the possibilities that he came into a new existence, he used money, power to work, to promote progress. In this sense, of course, he also made friends. He could, with his possibilities, spread hope and even gratitude, because he knew deep down that all of that, all the possibilities that he had and all the work he was able to accomplish was because he received those gifts, so to say, in the first place. So it came the second one, to which the Lord gave intelligence and authority, which is a very good thing as well. So, but the same way he comes and say, Lord, please forgive me. Forgive my shortcomings. I have made regrettable mistakes, yet I utilized the two values bestowed upon me, and through them I acquired two others, namely culture and experience, for the benefit of many of our brothers who remain behind. So here we see he came with the possibility of intelligence, of authority, but he fostered culture, experience. He helped those that were behind in a way that he didn't just use those benefits to himself. And in the same way, the Lord replied, well done, faithful servant, for you did not err intentionally. Return to the earthly field and resume the interrupted work, being reborn under the care of the affections you have gathered. So here we see it's interesting because even if they were well succeed, it doesn't mean that they were completely ready, right? They will have to return to life on this planet, to continue, their work of learning, of growing spiritually speaking. But of course, they will be gathering everything that they have planted before. They will sow what they have planted before. Yeah, this action and reaction, there would be all this goodness that would be provided to them as well. And there comes the third one. What is that God gives to the third one? Is spiritist knowledge. So to some people, they would say, well, I would prefer to have the gifts of money, power, or even in intelligence. But to us, as spiritists, we know what a blessing it is to have a spiritist knowledge, to understand everything, or maybe not everything, but to have at least a glimpse of what it is that we are doing here on earth, what is our purpose, what can we do to speed up the process of not being anymore surrounded by the shadows of our imperfections, of our mistakes, and all that. So he gave to this one the spiritist knowledge, and he can't come back to the Lord saying, Lord, I return to you the spiritist knowledge, untouched and pure as I received it from your munificence. Spiritist knowledge is light, Lord, and through it I have learned that your law is too harsh, attributing to each according to their deeds. How to use such a bright and living lamp if men on earth are divided by nightmares of envy and jealousy, cruelty and illusion. How to employ the brilliance of your truth without hurting or disturbing, and how to disturb or hurt without bringing deplorable and consequences upon myself. So we see the position of this servant, let's say that, uh, where he had the understanding, but not quite. Because if he had a true understanding of the value of spiritist knowledge, he would not have done what he did. Just let it, you know, uh, not shine and bright to others. And so the Lord tells him, you know that truth among human beings creates problems wherever it appears. Therefore, it's still the servant saying, therefore, I was afraid of your law and judged that the most reasonable measure for me was to settle into the peace of my home. Thinking thus, I concealed the gift that you recommended I apply, and I return to you such wealth without the slightest touch from me. So again, the word fear. I fear that your law is too strong, to that you are too stern, and that I prefer to stay at the peace of my home and not doing anything. So, what would be the response uh, of this Lord? And it's so beautiful how Umberto de Campos explains to us that, however stern that he was sad. And he ordered that the treasure of Spiritist knowledge be taken from this negligent servant and delivered immediately to the two diligent collaborators who would return to earth, declaring emphatically, "A faithful servant, there is no alternative for you for your negligence other than to begin your entire work again from the darkest obstacles of the beginning." And it was when the servant started to realize that what was going to be happening to him, having to return to earth in the darkest possible way, having to face all kinds of obstacles. And he started to plead for himself and saying, Lord, Lord, where is your fairness? You gave my companions money, power, comfort, skill, prestige, intelligence, authority, and to me you only gave spiritist knowledge. How do you place the full weight of your severity upon me? And sometimes I try to imagine this servant as being very well endowed with his words, because the way he tried to work in his favor and to excuse himself because he was fearful, because people were not ready for that knowledge, and because actually that blessing was not exactly that good. He would have preferred to have received what the others have received. The green is always grass on the other side of the fence. And then he continues, the conversation continues, and you do not ignore that I attribute to you the light of truth as being the greatest good of all. So this leads us to think about our position on earth now. Because we are spiritists. And of course, if on one hand we came here to improve ourselves, to use all the possibilities that we have received in order to do that, to better ourselves, um, we know that the best way of bettering ourselves is by serving others. And this is what the Lord gave to this servant, the possibility of enlightening others. So here we are having this possibility now, and let's see how this continues. It says, by hiding the wealth I lent you, you not only lost yourself out of fear of suffering and helping, but also harmed the deficient work of your brothers, whose days in the world would have achieved greater yield in eternal good had they received the share of love and service, humility and patience that you denied them. And we remember that question for the Spirit's book. I don't remember the number by heart, but when it says that to gain the reign, the realm, to be in God's grace would be enough for us not to do bad. And the Spirit's replied, no, you have to do good, and all the good that is within your reach that you have not done and had resulted in harm for your brothers and sisters, you will be responsible by this. So, and this is the thing here. The Lord is talking and saying, I give you that. See how much suffering there is around you. And even if you think that you do not have that much, whatever you have, it's better than having nothing, as so many brothers and sisters in our planet live today. They live in a condition where they are completely blind to the light of love, to the light of enlightenment, to the light of Jesus. And if you are not the ones spreading the word, how can we help them? And so, as I told you before, he was very good with his words. He started saying, Lord, Lord, why so, the unfortunate one? Why such rigor if your law is of mercy and justice? So he wanted to play tricks with God, saying, well, even if I didn't do what I was supposed to do, you're supposed to be good. You're supposed to love me. Where is your mercy? Where is your justice? And at this point, the Lord withdraws himself, and it is the assistance of the Lord that will be guiding the unfaithful servant into the shadows of a fresh start, clarifying to him that the law is indeed the embodiment of mercy and justice, but with a distinction. For those unaware of their duties, justice comes through the warrant of mercy, whereas for those beings aware of their own responsibility, mercy comes through the confines of justice. So, where are we placed in all this? Like we were saying before, I'll stop sharing this with you. We are here on this planet with the possibility of spreading all this knowledge that we have received. Maybe we don't have all the gifts that or all the abilities we wanted to have. We may not be a great speaker or know how to write in order to put those words into texts or books that could help others. But all of us have something. And the most important thing that we have and that we can give, if we let this spirit, this knowledge really fill our minds and our hearts, is actually our hearts. Because it is when we are going to be feeling compassion towards our brothers and sisters. It's when we will no longer be worried about criticism and people trying to dismay you in following a certain path. So many times we try to be better, and people say you're never going to be able to accomplish that. But yes, we will, because this is our destiny. That is the law of progress. And now we are having the chance of going through this progress with knowledge, with understanding, and using all this knowledge, we can promote our well being and the well being of our brothers and sisters. So, this is what I wanted to talk to you today about the talent of each one of us, because we all have those talents. We all have those possibilities. We all can make the lives of our brothers and sisters be becoming better. And remember, you can start in your own home. You don't have to go that far to make other people's lives better. Thank you.
I'll unmute myself. Just a second. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you for this beautiful explanation that you gave it to us, and this amazing reminder about our talents, right? On how we maintain ourselves and how we conduct ourselves in terms of the goodness that is given to us by our dear Creator, and bringing to light, what these teachings are in terms of the parables and how we can apply them in our lives. It's always a great reminder. And when we speak of constellation, when we speak of living a more fulfilling life, right? It's always to walk with Christ, to do with Christ, and this is an amazing reminder. We have some friends who are online with us and sharing this moment with us as well. And then I want just to share. Well, so far we only have a question that is from Leo. I don't know who this guy is, but definitely open up for those who are here at the SSB to ask a question or comment if you may have. When they'll give me 1 second, I'll take the microphone to you so you can share. Go right ahead. It's ready one.
Hi, Jussara. Thank you so much for sharing such beautiful thoughts with us. My question is if you'd have any tip to help us identifying if this fear that prevents us from applying our talents, mainly helping and serving, is a real psychological barrier that should be fought, or it's just an excuse that one can use to avoid leaving their comfort zone? Thank you.
I think that in a way, psychologically speaking, we are all prone to fear because we human beings, we are very vulnerable to criticism, and of course the more we expose ourselves, especially when we are talking about something that is different, and if we are talking about spreading spiritist knowledge, you will find many eyebrows lifting. How come this person talks about spirits and immortality and reincarnation? So, and that's why I think we prefer to stay in our comfortable zones. So definitely we should always be checking our level of fear. And if you want a tip, the way I do is like, I always have this conversation with God, with Jesus, saying, you know my intentions. I know I'm not the best servant, but I will do, or I lack a lot of possibilities to do better, but I will do whatever I can do. I will just not be crossing my arms and saying there are people better to do things than I am. And of course, we are always going to find people that are much more qualified than us to do things, but are they doing those things? And if we do not do that, who are going to be doing that, right? Who are the person that who is the one that is going to be doing that? So this is one thing. I always have this conversation with God and say, you know that I'm doing my best. I'm here with my goodwill to do and to serve, and in the best way that I can. And now it just came to my mind, of course we cannot compare, but I was thinking about Paul of Tarsus when he, in the road of Damascus, he just replied to Jesus, what do you want me to do? He didn't ask if he was going to be capable of doing this or that, or I mean, he knew he had so many flaws. He had just killed, one of the greatest disciples, of Jesus, followers of Jesus, Stephen. And so he was not worried about that, about, compensating for his faults or anything. He just knew he had to do it. So I think we should hear ourselves more and just do what we have to do. Our conscience is constantly going to be reminding us. It's just a matter of us not suffocating our conscience and give time to it, because today we have so many distractions that sometimes we don't have this conversation with ourselves. But I think that would be the best course of action.
Thank you. That is a great answer. I like the idea of listening to ourselves, knowing ourselves, right? That is definitely a great reminder to all of us. We'd like to go and share a couple questions that we have online as well. And I'll start with Daniel's question. He says, is there a fundamental difference between a natural talent and a well-honed skill? If someone can achieve mastery through practice in something they weren't naturally gifted at, does that diminish the value of talent itself?
Well, if we are talking about just one life, this question, of course, makes sense, right? Because even sometimes we will say, like, I'll use myself as an example. I would have loved to have learned to play an instrument. I didn't have the opportunity. Of course, now I could have the opportunity and the time if I wanted to, but never happened. And all of a sudden, you see those 2, 3, 4 year old children playing magnificently, and you say, "Why don't I have that?" Right? So how we know that everything that we have, it comes from everything that we have been learning and amassing in previous incarnations. So sometimes, the talent, let's say, that we have may even appear at an older age. Perhaps because it was better not to come before, because we wouldn't know how to deal with that well, right? But we shouldn't give more or less value to a talent that one person has, because it is the result of what they have been doing in the past, or the possibilities that we're giving for this person to be able to achieve things that this particular talent will propitiate to them. So let's say that I was given the talent, not that I deserved, not because I was, an orator in the past, but I've been given the talent to speak to the public. I can use this in many different ways, or not even use it. It doesn't mean that it's a talent that it was acquired per se. Maybe it was, but everything is now is going to depend on how I'm using it. Whether it was something that I have conquered in the past, or if it's something that I'm just being, it was a loan for me to advance. Now is what I do with it that it's important. So I don't think we should never devalue just the value of a talent if it comes from one reason or another. In any case, it always will come and be present with us because it will help us in our personal growth. And we do know that there are many other hidden talents that we have that if they are hidden because they were not going to be useful to us in this incarnation and could be a way of distracting us. So, in this sense, I think, thank you so much for your question. It's a very interesting one.
Too. So just go ahead and share Yasko's question here when she says, "Hi, Jussara. Great talk. I always feel that the Lord, if he represents God, was too harsh with the one that buried his talent. Considering that the Lord knew this one was still immature, less capable. I try to compare to the fate of a person that is hiding his or her mediumship talent for fear of the unknown. What am I missing?"
Oh, yes. Thank you for being here, listening to us. Yeah, again, when we think only about the material perspective, right? Our life is here in this planet. It's hard for us to understand. Um Sometimes everything that happened in this parable. That's why we are still studying it, and we will have to continue studying because there is so much more than we can gather from that. But we know that God is love, is justice, is mercy. And if that servant was had the possibility of carrying a burden in his shoulder, God would never have given him a burden greater than he would be able to sustain. This is what we know. And so, if it was only given to him one talent, which was much less than the others, but it was giving him still the possibility. And we can sometimes even think that what maybe the talents also represent life in this sense. Your possibility of returning to life, right, and start anew and trying to do good things with your life, right? So regardless, you mentioned mediumship, regardless of the gifts that we were giving, all of them we have to be putting into use. But there are many ways of us putting into use the gift that we receive. Let's say that I have a very good voice. I can use this to spread knowledge, to become a teacher, to become an orator. I can use that to perhaps sing, or can use that to recite poems. In terms of mediumship, many people do not have the knowledge and the understanding of mediumship, and sometimes not even the means to practice it. But mediumship can be practiced on our day-to-day lives because it's what we are, is the energy that we are releasing in benefit of others. So we can put our mediumship to use when we give ourselves to others in some kind of altruistic work, because at the end of the day, all the talents that we receive, they have just a single aim, which is to give us an instrument, a tool for us to grow, to do better. So as long as we are doing that, this is what it really matters, and not missing the opportunity with the talent that we have received.
Great answer, Jussara, and thank you for, like you said, great questions, right? That we are receiving here. I just want to go ahead and acknowledge the presence also of some of our friends. Kirsten here with us, Orlando also, Orlando Gray with us, following us this beautiful talk and this beautiful reminder. Does anyone else has a question or a comment that you'd like to? Okay, so let's move on to this guy's question. Great explanations, Asada. Can we consider friends and family members as talents given to us by God and vice versa? If so, how can we apply these teachings towards our brothers and sisters?
Well, that they are not talents, right? But they may be, God's messengers to put our talents into test, to help us in developing this or that virtue that we still do not have. Or even, in this sense, supposing that they are spirits more evolved than we are, because it doesn't mean that because we are parents we are more evolved than our children. The right line of things would be no, and one day it will be this way, because each time that we come, we will be coming in a better version of ourselves. So supposing that they are better than we are, they are there to put us in check, to help us learn as well, to help us keep up, and continue in this path to righteousness. So we cannot say that a person is a talent, but I can say that a person can help me, motivate me to work on a talent, and actually perform my commitments. And sometimes we see that through difficult stories, when a couple has a child that has a very challenging illness, and this couple is going to be engaging themselves in finding out everything about the illnesses, and gather people and start foundations and researches in search of healing for their children. So there are many situations that we will see that this relationship that we have with one another, being parents or being their children or being spouses or partners or friends, it only can give us opportunity to grow. Even when the relationship is challenging, we can learn more in tolerance, in patience, in understanding that not every one of us is on the same stage and same level of involvement. So I think this is a very great question, but we cannot say it cannot transfer our responsibility to them and say, you are my talent, I'm done, you have to continue and fulfill whatever it was for me to do. No, I think they only are the messengers and the ones that will be guiding us towards, or perhaps even reminding us, you have a commitment, do it.
Thank you. Just to try to make sure. Yeah, actually, thank you so much. That was a beautiful answer as well. And at this moment, we conclude the questions and comments that we have, and we would like to thank you again, Jussara, and all of those who are following us, perhaps not only now, but also in the future, who have watched this whole talk and put into practice, right? The only thing that we always like to remind, the only thing that we can ask truly from one another is to practice these teachings, right? And to the challenging moments that we have in our lives, that we remember these moments that we share together and be able to put into practice. That's the only thing we don't demand from anybody anything, especially to put into practice, but we ask, because it is the results of these moments that we have with one another that will facilitate or will generate a better world for all of us. And I would like to thank you, Jussara, we're sending our hugs, our uh, everything that we can send to you and to the family as well, sharing this moment with us and taking the time in this beautiful afternoon to spend here with us. As once we start, and as in the future, in the past we already mentioned this. Once we start this trend, right, we continue to do so, and I know Daniel will be like, "Oh, let's go ahead and continue with this." It is good to for you to add your thoughts and your teachings with us about our talents. We have embarked here at the SSB at least once a month to study as well the parables. So I am glad that you share this with us, that you comment on these beautiful messages that we also find within Spiritism, right, about the parable of talents. And thank God for these great minds as well. I would like to ask you for you to say the final prayer for us, and we bid ourselves farewell after that. Thank you.
As we feel the presence of the benefactors that have been present with us, that have been guiding and helping us in our studies, in our reflections today, we pray to our Heavenly Creator that we may have peace and harmony throughout our week, that our homes may be filled with peace, and asking the good spirits, our brother Jesus, to continue giving opportunities to us to learn, to reflect upon his teachings, but above all, that in our day-to-day lives, we may be called to contribute, to use our talents, our possibilities, as small as they can be, to help others, to guide others, and to make life on our planet better. And with that, we ask permission to end this meeting.